It's Saturday, April 5th, 2025. This is Liberty Economics. I felt compelled to sit down and put this video commentary together because, there's a certain matter that, I haven't heard anybody else discuss what I'm about to discuss here. That what I'm about to espouse, I haven't heard anybody else share, and I do believe it's important. Uh, First of all, I support free markets. I consider myself to be a disciple of the Austrian School of Economics. I absolutely love Peter Schiff. Peter Schiff gets so many things right. And I basically agree with him on basically everything, right? Uh, I want to say it's like 2019. I wrote a commentary. In fact, you could pull it up, although I think right now on the major publication that was posted on is behind a paywall. But you can find it either way for free on libertyeconomics.com. The name of the commentary is The Menace of Right Wing Socialism. Again, The Menace of Right Wing Socialism. Again, if you go to libertyeconomics.com, just scroll down, you'll find my commentary. It was also carried by I believe, like the Reno Gazette Journal or something like that. The Reno Gazette. Like I said, I think they have it behind a paywall now. If you just Google the menace of right wing socialism, it may come up. You may be able to get it. I don't know. But anyway, I was very critical of Trump from a free market perspective. And, I think I did some good work, pointing out how capital flows and how, you basically, I argue, I spend the whole commentary arguing against, capital controls, trade controls, which are objectively capital controls, as a means to try to remedy a problem, created by promiscuous monetary policy and, overspending here, and it's like the same argument can be made against these tariffs. That's why I wanted to, sit down and make this video commentary that, there's a problem with, believing that tariffs are going to magically fix everything. But, there's another aspect to this, and this is why I wanted to make this video commentary because, I haven't heard anybody else, discuss what I'm about to discuss. I haven't heard anybody else, not a single economist, not a single Austrian schooler, not a single, economics professor. As I was thinking about something, it's like this dynamic hit me. And, I'd love to hear the feedback, particularly of my fellow free market, uh, disciples, especially, people from the Austrian School of Economics. Uh, but, it sort of occurred to me, I mean, I'm trying to think of the way to describe it. We're like you're so right about things that you're actually wrong about something. But you're so right about how bad things are that you're actually wrong about solutions. All right. And, that's just it. We have a lot of problems. And put it this way, I'm not, my goal isn't to play defense for Donald Trump. All right. I'm just trying to be objective here. All right. And here's the thing, I'm not saying that this is why Trump is even enacting tariffs. Okay. I'm not saying that Trump is even necessarily aiming to do the right thing. But, it's like the whole world is fouled up with, this funny money system, this fiat monetary system. And, no country really has the discipline to return to a gold standard, sound money. But, I mean, I've heard, obviously, economists have talked about Gresham's Law, but what I've never heard anybody do is, nexus Gresham's Law with our current monetary system, the current financial system, and, using Gresham's law to understand how we would have to return to sound money and how we can actually restore a free market. What's interesting about Gresham's law is that Gresham considered that the problem of governments and state authorities using capital controls, using trade controls to actually force people onto fiat money. Because of course, back then you were operating in a dynamic where like a gold standard sound money was the prevailing order of the day. Is an aberration for a jurisdiction to shift over to fiat money. And the only way that that fiat money could so take over would require governments having to impose like fiat money standards. So he like considered that aspect of trade controls, capital controls, but what he basically government by force trying to drive out good money. But if you take Gresham's law and understand that naturally bad money tends to drive out good money, precisely because people would rather hoard and keep the good money and spend the bad money, get rid of the bad money while they can, it sort of occurred to me that we've got a problem here. And the way to illustrate this, to crystallize this, let's use a hypothetical scenario where we just consider, say, the United States here and not the rest of the world. Suppose the state of, say, Florida, for example, decided it wanted to return to sound money and, impose a gold standard, use a gold standard in Florida, right? Well, that's all great. That would be a great thing to try to achieve. But where they'd run into an issue is if other jurisdictions didn't follow suit. Well, now you've got a scenario here where dollars are flowing into Florida still, and dollars are still functioning as money, as good as money. And so all you're really doing is you're penalizing Floridians by, forcing Floridians to have to work and produce to earn their real money, gold. And I'm not saying that that's not an ideal situation ultimately, but the thing of it is you're just penalizing Floridians and putting them at a disadvantage now, unless you actually banish fiat dollars from Florida. I mean, you would literally need the state of Florida would have to say, no, we can't take your money anymore. We have to totally ban fiat dollars coming into Florida. Because if you don't, if fiat dollars can function as money in Florida, well, then why wouldn't Floridians just, hey, let's just keep using dollars then? I mean, why go work for my money? Gold. Why have to go work and produce to earn my money when all these dollars are flowing in and people from the next state over are coming in to buy up our real estate here in Florida and buy everything from us and buy our goods and merchandise? I might as well join in that too, And what really got me to think about this too was, as I thought about the commentary I wrote back in 29, and I thought about how capital flows, is the solution then just to, for the Fed to stop inflating and tighten? Well, yeah, I'd like to see that, and then just reverse capital outflow, but then have, say, reverse our role basically just the U.S. and China reverse roles, where now China's fiat money just comes flooding into the United States, and we end up in the same situation that China is now in terms of just having all these fiat dollars now, where we just sit there and turn around and buy fiat dollars from the rest of the world, and don't enjoy our own the benefits of consuming our own production. So basically, I mean, we're just gonna change roles, reverse roles with China now. That's not the solution, and that's just it. I mean, suppose the U.S. tries to go onto a gold standard. The only way you could do this, I mean, you literally need to actually banish foreign fiat currencies from coming into the United States. Or guess what? Gresham's Law. Gresham's Law. And what's interesting is, like I said, Gresham considered scenarios where governments actually had to use the force of law to try to usurp sound money. What he wasn't able to imagine back then is a paradigm where the whole world is on a fiat money standard, and that it's basically, like a race to the bottom where doing the right thing is penalized and disincentivized. It's kind of like, me in my own situation where, I stood on principle, not wanting to take anything from the taxpayer to go to school. Did employers reward me for that? No. I've been penalized for it. Whereas if you cheated and got government subsidies to go get brainwashed in, some college, you go to the front of the line for employment, right? It's like the same thing. So, I mean, we're just going to go onto a gold standard, but then let fiat money come in from the rest of the world. And then what's that going to do? Gresham's Law. Think about Gresham's Law. The bad fiat money is going to drive out the good, and we're not going to be able to get back onto a gold standard. We're just going to reverse roles with, China, with the rest of the world. We're, instead of selling dollars to the rest of the world, all we're doing is buying the rest of the world's fiat money. So, bottom line is, it sort of occurred to me that it's like we're so right. The Austrian schools are so right that we almost miss the fact that we're in such bad shape that we can't get to sound money without capital controls. Some kind of capital controls. Again, I don't know that this is what's underlying Trump's agenda, but, I wanted to at least throw this out. And, I think this would make for a good discussion. Gresham's Law and the obstacle of Gresham's Law when it comes to doing the right thing and returning to sound money in the United States. This is a matter that I think requires a greater level of analysis and investigation.